It is one of the best walks you can take when visiting our island called Manhattan. When on the island of Manhattan, should you find yourself on the Highline, please be sure to stop into the Chelsea Marketplace, which is right under the Highline. For a real New York authentic marketplace experience, visit Chelsea Market. Guess what? What? Guess what? What? I'm going to keep saying it until that guy says what. Guess what? What? He didn't still say what, but I won't say it again right now. Did you guys know that the Titanic was headed here to Chelsea Piers on the left side of the boat? This would have been the final destination of the Titanic had it not hit an iceberg on New Year's Eve and sink in the Atlantic Ocean. This is Chelsea Piers, New York City sports and athletics complex. If you look on the other side of Chelsea Piers, you'll see a white glass building that looks like a giant block of ice. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see that? Yes. Of course you can. That building is called the Iceberg building. It is a memorial to the Titanic. Guess what? What? Guess what? What? I say that a lot, so get used to it. Guess what? What? Did you guys know that in 2009, there was an airplane flying over the skies of New York, and the pilot of that plane lost complete power. So he had to make a quick decision. Either crash the plane into the city and kill millions of people, or try his best to catch the plane right here into the Hudson River. Guess what? What? That pilot did something that had never, ever been done before in the history of aviation. He successfully landed the plane right here, exactly where we are on the Hudson River. We who live here in New York City, we call that day Miracle on the Hudson. The reason why we call that day Miracle on the Hudson, there was 134 passengers on that plane. Not one single passenger received a single scratch. What's the captain's name? You know the story, and I went through all that for nothing? Well, that happened right here where we are. Look to the left side of the boat, ladies and gentlemen, directly to the left. You'll see some concrete structures. I call them concrete tulips because they remind me of the tulip flower. Well, there's 205 of them. After they put them all together, they created 4.5 acres of the most amazing park you will ever visit. There's no other park like it anywhere else in the world. It's the newest park on the island, and it's a public space, so it's absolutely free to go onto the Little Island. That is the name of this park, the Little Island. Grab yourself a slice of pizza or a couple of hot dogs and park yourself for a park-like experience that you'll never, ever find anywhere else in the world. Guess what? What? Guess what? What? Guess what? What? If you're having your meals, if you're eating at restaurants in the Times Square area, if you're having your meals, if you're eating at restaurants around the Rockefeller Center area, guess what? You're paying way too much money to eat in our city. No one who lives here in New York City would ever go to those areas to dine out. But we do go to this neighborhood on the left side of the boat called Greenwich Village. Greenwich Village is the most desirable place to live when living on the island of Manhattan. You name a restaurant, you will find a restaurant that serves food from that country in this neighborhood. Greenwich Village is the home of jazz clubs, blues, salsa, merengue, techno, country, western, hip-hop, reggae, drag shows, you name it, it all happens here in Greenwich Village. Greenwich Village is also the home of Taylor Swift, Macaulay Culkin. Bruce, are you a Taylor Swift fan? Guess what? She lives at 54 Cornelia Street. You gotta go take a picture of 54 Cornelia Street. Taylor Swift, Macaulay Culkin, Bruce Willis, Whoopi Goldberg, Demi Moore, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett, Queen Latifah, Sarah Jessica Parker, and many, many others all live here in Greenwich Village. Greenwich Village is where I do not live. Another great neighborhood that you'll find here on the left side of the boat is called SOHO. SOHO stands for South of Houston Street. If you're from Texas, you probably say Houston, but here we say Houston. S-O for South, H-O for Houston gives SOHO its name, SOHO. SOHO is the home of New York City art galleries. More art galleries in SOHO than any other neighborhood in all of New York City. SOHO is a cobblestone street neighborhood. Every store that you can imagine that you've ever heard of can be found in SOHO. And guess what? Wow. SOHO is also another great neighborhood to have a meal or two in. Great, great restaurants in SOHO. Guess what? What? Guess what? What? Guess what? Did you guys know that Chinatown is the oldest community in New York City? The African Americans, the Italians, the Irish, the Greek, the Polish, the Germans, the French, the Hebrews, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Portuguese, the Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans, the Mexicans, the Brazilians, the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Polish, have all relocated their communities many times throughout the history of New York. Did I say the Koreans? But the Chinese have always remained in the same exact location since the early 1700s, making Chinatown the oldest community in New York City. When visiting Chinatown, ladies and gentlemen, there's one street and one street only that you should go to. Be sure to visit Mott Street, M-O-T-T. Mott Street is the first, oldest, and most authentic street in Chinatown. And guess what? What? Chinatown is also the only place in the United States where you can get a Rolex watch for $25. Visit Chinatown, ladies and gentlemen. Another great neighborhood. Now look really closely at these buildings here on the left side of the boat. Look how well maintained these buildings are. Look how clean they are. Look how beautiful these buildings are. This area is called Tribeca. This is where the super rich and the super discreet live. Tribeca was once the home of John F. Kennedy Jr. and his wife Caroline. When they died in that plane crash, they lived in this neighborhood. Robert De Niro, who's lived here at Tribeca for over 40 years, is also the president and the founder of the Tribeca Film Festival. The newest couple to purchase a home here in Tribeca just happens to be the most famous, most successful, and most powerful couple in the music industry. Who am I talking about? Beyonce doesn't come alone. What's the name of the couple? Beyonce and Jay-Z. That is correct. If you look to the left side of the boat, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see a long brown building. Look in the sky over that building. You see that funny looking building that looks like a Chica game? Guess what? What? That building is called the Chica building. Look at the glass going around the top two floors, not the rooftop, but the top two floors with glass going all the way around them. That is the New York City home of Beyonce and Jay-Z. The building is called the Chica building. Guess what? Did you guys know that in 1973, when the city of New York dug up the ground to build the foundation for the World Trade Center Twin Towers, the city dug up thousands and thousands of tons of rock. This rock is called schist rock. If you go to Central Park, this is the only place on the island where you can still see the schist rock, which is the foundation of the island. But when they dug up all that rock to build the World Trade Center Twin Towers, they laid it here on the left side of the boat, and they made a massive landfill. And on top of that landfill, they built this magnificent neighborhood called Battery Park City. Battery Park City is the only part of the island built on a landfill. Scientists have predicted, should there ever be a major earthquake in New York City, Battery Park City just simply would not survive. But guess what? In the 400-year history of our island, we have never ever had a major earthquake, so the people here at Battery Park City sleep quite well at night. Battery Park City is the New York City home of Leonardo DiCaprio, supermodel Tyra Banks, and Wendy Williams. Shh. 9/11. 9/11. Thank you so much for joining me in a moment of silence for the 3,000 people that died that day right here on the left side of the boat. When those two towers came falling down after being attacked by terrorists. Every single thing that you see here on the left side of the boat either had severe damage or 100% covered in ashes. It was the worst day in the history of America. But guess what? We're Americans. And no matter what you look like, no matter where you stand in this country, if they knock you down, we will get right back up, stand taller, stronger, and even more powerful than ever. And we sent that message to the world when we rebuilt this area and completed the Freedom Tower, which stands 1,776 feet tall. It's the crown of America and the jewel of New York. Guys, look to the right side of the boat. You'll see a clock. That's the largest outdoor clock in America. It's called the Colgate clock. The Colgate clock sits where the Colgate factory once stood before they moved west. When the Colgate factory packed up and left this area, they left the clock behind. You want to know why? You want to know why? Because the Colgate family knew that millions of tourists would look across the river, see the clock, and realize it's time to brush your teeth. That was stupid. If you continue to look to your right, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see a red building with a small green tower on it. That's the Central Railway Terminal, oldest standing train terminal in America. When millions of immigrants were coming to America by ship, once they became American citizens, they would come here to the Central Railway Terminal to take trains going all points west. But not all of the immigrants during that time in the early 1800s could afford the train ticket. So they would hide themselves on the train. When the train would get to its first stop just a couple of miles away, they would find those immigrants who did not have tickets, and they would refer to them as hobos. And the reason why they would call them hobos, because they would find them at the Hoboken train station, giving hobos their name, hobos. Look to the left. Just behind us on the left side of the boat, I'm pointing to it if you can see me, there's a building with 6 different levels on it. Each one of those levels represent 1 million people. Each level represents 1 million people, 6 levels. How many people are we talking about? This building is a memorial to the 6 million innocents. It is a memorial to the 6 million innocent Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust. There are 2 museums in New York City that you must visit. If you don't go to any other museum, you must visit the Schomburg Museum in Harlem and the Jewish Heritage Museum here on the south end of the island. If you continue to look to the left, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see a long white building sitting on a pier. That pier is called Pier A.